I'm so excited to be joined here with Shay Kauwe, author of brand new book, The Killing Spell, which comes out April 14th, 2026. Shay is a Kanaka Maoli author from Hawaii and grew up on the homestead in Waimanalo, but moved to Russia because she fell in love with a boy. They now live in Oahu, and she has a MED in education and was named an NCTE Early Educator of Color in 2021. In 2022, she was awarded an Empowering Oivi Leadership Award by the Hawaiian Council for her work in storytelling and literacy. The Killing Spell will be the first traditionally published adult fantasy novel by a Hawaiian author. Amazing. That is like huge, no pressure at all on that. So thank you so much for joining me today. I had a really fun time reading The Killing Spell, and I'm just so excited to talk about it with you today. And just to start us out, I remember coming across your TikTok and like deeply resonating with the description of the book, mainly because I too have personal connections to a language that was stolen from my ancestors. So I'm Uchinachu, which is Okinawan, and a lot of people don't know that Okinawa has its own language that was once banned after colonization, much like Olelo Hawaii. And so I was wondering, to kick us off, if we could introduce ourselves in our languages. Um, yeah, so if you wanted to introduce yourself in Hawaiian, please feel free.
I would absolutely love to. Aloha oi. O she kawe ko'ui no piha. No ho'auma waima nalo makamoku o Oahu. No Hawaii mai au. Mahalo no kia aha.
Yay! And then for me, Wande Karangaipin, South Carolina, Kara Chavitan, Ita Saragutu Unige Sabira. So my name's Karen. I'm from South Carolina, and it's nice to meet you. So the Killing Spell follows a very unique fantastical system rooted in linguistics. So I'm curious, what was your inspiration that kickstarted this writing process for you? How did you come up with this world?
Yeah, I mean, unsurprisingly, I think it was learning other languages that really inspired the world of the Killing Spell, but counterintuitively, not Olelo Hawaii, at least not at first. So I moved to Russia to marry my now husband, which looking back on it, I'm like, look, I don't recommend that. I don't know that that would work for everyone. It did happen to work out for me. But I understand why my parents were at the time not so thrilled about their very young child moving all the way across the other side of the world. But I got to Russia, and it was the very first time I was immersed in a second language. Like I had literally no choice but to start learning the language in order to live there. And I'd always thought of myself as somebody who was not good at language. I was infamously bad at Olelo Hawaii in high school, like infamously very bad. I like to joke that I'm the reason that Kamehameha schools, which is the high school I went to, now requires Hawaiian language. Um, but then I was in Russia, and I realized after about 3 to 4 years of living there that I could now speak my partner's mother tongue better than my own. And it was like a really big shock and realization. It kind of hit me all at once that all the excuses I'd used my life, like, oh, Olelo is too hard, or it's not going to be really useful. And like, here I was learning what is arguably one of the most difficult languages in the world. And like, in terms of usefulness, very useful in Russia, maybe not so much in Hawaii for like my everyday work, especially now. And it really sort of kickstarted this drive to come home and to learn Hawaiian language, which we did. And I did struggle with Hawaiian. I think, interestingly enough, way more than Russian, just because like the option for immersion is very inaccessible to the average person in Hawaii because of the history of like suppression and bans, which I'm sure you might understand and resonate with. But it was really helpful to have Russian as a framework to then learn Hawaiian. It helped a lot because like all this stuff that's kind of hidden to you when you're just a native English speaker about the actual literal structure of language in terms of things like things that I'd never known before, even though I'd studied English, like gerunds and definite articles and like different tenses and how they function. It really helped with the study of Olelo. And yeah, kind of like looking at those differences is what made me have the inspiration and the idea for this book. Oh, and I should mention my husband is actually like a linguist by education and trade. So it helps. I have a built-in consultant.
Right. Um, I don't know if you feel similarly. So Japanese was my first language growing up, and then
Oh,
I started school in Illinois, and I don't know, my parents and we were approached by my teacher, and we were like, she said, I would prefer Karen not to speak Japanese. And there was only one other Japanese speaking kid. And so from that moment on, like, I think that kind of scared just not myself, but my parents too. There wasn't a big enough Okinawan or Japanese community for that type of support. And so years later, like in my adulthood, trying to learn Japanese, there's almost kind of like a not a shame or like there's feelings of shame and guilt almost for not being able to keep up with the language or having to learn it. So I can understand like it is hard to learn a new language, and that energy and effort you put into it is like it's a lot of work, but it's so worth it in the end to be reconnected with your mother tongue.
yeah, I that makes so much sense. That's exactly how I felt. Like there was this barrier for learning Olelo Hawaii that I didn't have for Russian because of that shame that like I should know this and I don't. Um, and I think that's why it was important for me that Kea in the story be bad at languages, like to sort of help. Like my idea is that people are reading it and they feel okay about just trying because I do think that that is way more important than being perfect in anything.
Absolutely. And that segues into something that I was very curious about. So the last few sentences of your author's note reads, "Languages are wonderful, beautiful, strange things that change and shift as they please. The harder folks in ivory towers try to control them, the more they bleed outside the lines. Take comfort in the fact that there is no correct way to speak or write. So speak more, write more, be loud about it, because the only way to use a language is to not use it at all." And so I wanted to hear about your thought process in writing the author's note and some of the decisions you've made in representing languages throughout this entire novel.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background in education actually started in ESL. So I was an ESL TESOL teacher in Russia. And every student would come in with different goals. Like some obviously wanted it for academic purposes, but so many, the goal was just communication. Like they just wanted to be understood. And I understood that because at the same time I was learning Russian and like the goal in that was really just to be able to communicate with my partner's family. Like his English is perfect. Like linguists, they're they're excellent, but none of his family really speaks English fluently. So if I wanted to build that connection and relationship, I needed to make the effort there. Um, and it's like, so what is the goal of learning a new language? Is it perfection or is it something bigger or greater? Is it about talking to people you love? Is it about community or identity? And I think society has this tendency to put on a pedestal this idea of like a perfect version of a language. I don't know, like Oxford commas and don't end a sentence with a preposition. But when you look at it from like a structural standpoint, those aren't really rules. Like like they're rules for this perfect version of a language, but it doesn't prevent understanding of it or that community or communication form of it. And I think the bad thing of it is that way of thinking is what leads to discrimination against folks who don't speak standard versions of that language, or people who have this idea that if you're not fluent in a language, you're somehow stupid, which is wrong. And it creates all these like hierarchies of language and like the repression of fully formed languages in the United States and elsewhere, AAVE, Pidgin, and so on. And it kind of I don't know. I just think I feels very strongly about this. I think it has bad impacts on the world as a whole when really every language has things that should be celebrated about it and should be involved in more places. So sorry, I went on a long ramble
Oh,
there, but
I love it. I feel very similarly because, I grew up around Pigeon. I also grew up in Hawaii. I don't know if I ever like mentioned that, or I grew up in Eva Beach and then we moved to South Carolina like 11 years ago, I think. So I feel like I'm no stranger to being around so many languages. And I think that's just what I loved about your book so much is that there's representation of people fighting to have their languages represented at like a larger systemic level in their communities. And I feel like we see that a lot in real life too. I don't know. I feel like I've maybe seen some of your like reposts on Instagram, but there's a person in Hawaii. I think his name is Lee, but he's doing a lot of work, amazing work to like put pigeon out there and make that like the norm. And like, I don't know, I just love the work being done around that. And also the revitalization of uchinaguchi in and out of Okinawa, I think is just amazing. So I feel very similarly to
yes.
you about languages.
Yeah, Lee Tanucci is our current poet laureate in Hawaii. He's a
Okay.
long advocate of both Pidgin and Okinawan culture,
Mhm.
actually. Highly recommend if anyone's watching. He has this fantastic academic article called "The State of Pidgin Address," and it's written entirely in Pidgin. And it was kind of like a groundbreaking thing when it happened that he published this very formal academic piece entirely in Pidgin, and it's like a he was a big inspiration for me. He's just a cool guy. Uh,
I love that overlap too. So that's awesome. Um, and with that said, like I said, there are so many languages represented in the Killing Spell. What was your research process like?
yeah, okay. It really I don't have like the best answers for this. So the languages that I know, so Hawaiian, English, and Russian, I would take initial cracks at it. And then it really was like a community effort. I know, like, obviously, deferred to my husband for the Russian because it's his native language. He knows things about it that I don't, and he could provide guidance on it. For Hawaiian, it's a little harder because I don't know anybody who speaks Hawaiian as a native language. So wrote it myself. I kind of like fielded it with my peers in like the Olelo community, friends and family who are better than me. And then went a step further and I hired like language consultants who are fluent in Hawaiian. I hired about four of them that I paid for out of pocket, I should say. The publisher did not give me money to do this. But it was really helpful. Like I believe in paying people for their work. I wanted to make sure the Alelo was as accurate as it could be. So I went that extra step. I didn't purely just didn't have the funds to do that for every language. So most of my like language consultation would stop at the level of like personal people I know.
Yeah.
So like my friends and family who spoke Japanese, for example. And like there are limits to that just because like I didn't know as many fluent native speakers because there's just such a difference. Like if you grow up in the language and you're a native speaker, even if you're very, very fluent and you've learned it your whole life, there's just like things that are either cultural or things that you're gonna get messed up because it's not your first language. So I'm a little bit nervous about that because I am almost 100% certain there are going to be errors, specifically in the Japanese and the Cantonese version. But it's not anybody's fault but my own. So nobody should blame anyone else for that.
Also, like you said in your author's note, um, the worst way to use a language is not use it at all. So I think, hiring of the language consultants and tapping into your network of people that just shows the care that you put into like the representation of these languages. And to what you were saying, my mom, she's a fluent Japanese speaker, but I learned later on, I think I was taking some sort of like Japanese and Uchinaguchi private lesson. And I learned that some of the Japanese my mom was using growing up was actually Uchinaguchi. But
Mm.
to her, it was just Japanese. Like that's just what she had always known. So I feel like even then, if you have someone in your close circle who you think is fluent and they think are fluent, there's again the cultural like influences into their language and their dialect. So Yeah, I totally understand what you mean. But that's so cool that you hired
Yeah,
language consultants.
I did. They were really phenomenal to work with, and like I don't know. I was just again, I just feel strongly like I was asking them to do so much. I think that we should pay people for what they're doing for us as professionals, um, because I think it's so easy to just rely on people, and people will offer things for free, and it's so sweet, but labor should be compensated. I and that's just my feeling about that anyway.
I feel you on that. Um, so without giving too much away of your story, what was your personal favorite moment to write in The Killing Spell?
Ooh, okay. I love a happy ending. I don't think that's giving too much away. Or maybe I should say not a happy ending necessarily, but like full circle moments.
Mhm.
So the afterwards was just the thing that I liked the best about writing. And one thing I will say is like the very last line of the book is something that has stayed from draft one to the final draft, which if you know anything about editing, it's very hard to do. So I love that part.
Well, I was gonna say I don't know anything about editing, and so is there anything you can share about this like writing process as a debut author that was just unexpected to you or a surprise, and just what was that experience like?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I think so again, used to be an English teacher. And unfortunately, guys, your English teacher is right. If you plan things out, you save yourself a lot of pain. I did not plan this out when I wrote it, which is a problem that I had. I ended up rewriting it like entirely, start to finish, about three times.
Oh,
So if anyone's read it, an earlier version, it's very different now. Yeah.
when did you start writing The Killing Spell?
I started writing it in about, oh my gosh, it was either, I think it was about 2020 during COVID. I was a teacher at the time at Waianae High School, Go See Writers, and I had challenged my students to write a novel, and they were unhappy with me about this challenge. And kids like they enjoyed doing it, but there was always this thing of like, oh, it's not fair. Like you haven't even written a book, miss. Like, so I was like, okay, I'll write one too. And we did. So like we wrote these novels together. Um, theirs was for class, we printed it, and then mine, I was like, you know what, I think I like this. And then I started like querying from that process. So yeah, so thanks to my high school class in 2020, they're the reason this book exists.
I love when I've read like other like memoirs and novels that come from an MFA prompt, like writing prompt, and then they just
Whoa.
carry through with it. So I love that your class had such a big role in that. Um,
Okay.
Something that I noticed that you and I have in common with our main character, Kea, is that we're both eldest daughters. We're all eldest daughters in this circle. And I feel like the novel in itself was a love letter to eldest daughters. And so I was wondering, why is that part of your identity so important to you? And did you always know that Kea was going to be an eldest daughter?
Yes. Yeah, just that's just my general answer to this. Yes, speaking of, literally my brother just showed up unannounced and he's just walking into my house right now as we're talking. So I looked out the window. I was like, eh. Anyway, 100%. I feel that The Killing Spell ultimately is a story about family,
Mhm.
and eldest daughters are the backbones of their families. Moms and eldest daughters, like 100%. So if this is a story about family, like I like to think of a story like built around certain themes and try to have as many pieces of that story connect, ideally all of them. And that's why like it to me it didn't make sense for Kaya to be anyone else.
Yeah.
She had to be the eldest daughter of the family. And I think we need more representation of that sort of like dynamic in stories. And a lot of fantasy that you read, like usually they're an orphan or alone or like they don't have any family. And that's just not something I understood. Like I've never such a huge family. It's like this feeling of responsibility, but also like joy of seeing your people come together and succeed. And I hope that that's communicated through the killing spell.
Absolutely, it was. And what I loved is that Kaya's family included her grandparents and cousins, and I think that's just how I feel like my life was like growing up as well. And I feel like I was almost like the community eldest daughter. Like I was the oldest kid out of all of my parents' friends' children. So then I and then was the big sister to like all of these other children that I wasn't blood related to, but they were part of my community, and that role of being an eldest daughter, big sister, just kind of overflowed into all sorts of other families too. So I think I think that was really well communicated in The Killing Spell with Kea.
Thank you.
Um,
And I knew it. We like that connection. Yeah. My publisher, they and my agent, they were trying to kill members of this family and make them smaller. They were like, it's so many people. I
no,
was like, I fought to keep the family large because I was like, it's an
and
important part of her character.
very important. And there was just I really don't want to give too much away in the interview, like in case people haven't read the book, but there was a moment where I was really worried for one character in particular after an attack, and I was just on the edge of my seat the entire time. And I was like, I don't think I can handle this. Like, I don't think I can handle this for Kea. So I'm glad that was not the case. I'm glad that wasn't your writing experience as well. Um, okay, so throughout the story, Kea alludes to or mentions the flood that wipes out Hawaii. And I wanted to know if there was anything else in your imagination about the flood or just about this world that you weren't able to put down on paper. Um, but also, why did the story, or why on your end did the story take place in LA, Los Angeles, rather than in Hawaii?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's like, okay, I like this question. I really imagine this flood as this magical apocalyptic event that just sort of like releases a torrent of magic into the world. And I think I mentioned this very, very briefly. It's like a single sentence in the book that magi follow cultures, that like whatever culture you are going to attract that sort of chaotic magical energy to you. So that was actually like the premise of what I started with. And then I looked at the world as a whole and I was like, what countries would this be really interesting? And obviously it's America. We're very diverse, culturally, linguistically. Like it would just be, I think, a pretty interesting place to be in if like magic is attracted to culture. Other places as well, like I think like Papua New Guinea has some of the biggest linguistic diversity, and Uganda has like some of the biggest cultural diversity. But also, I wanted to frame it in like my own reference of what I understood. Um, and then as to why it's set in LA and not Hawaii specifically, there's like two reasons. Like one, it's a nod to the reality that for the first time in history, the majority of Native Hawaiians are now diaspora.
Mm.
That is a real, actual statistic, in fact. And California is one of the top destinations for folks to move to. And then the second reason is that a big theme in the book is to provide explanation for some of the very real struggles that the Native Hawaiian community has with the United States government, still and ongoing. So I really wanted to put those two forces like right up against each other. And I just know the most about LA because I've been there a lot. I have family, and I was like, okay, this is the city it's going to take place in, so that there these like conflicts that are coming to a head right next to each other, and they're not sort of separated by like an ocean like we are in real life here.
Yeah, I came across, I think, your TikTok about that statistics about how majority
Hmm.
of people are now diaspora. I didn't realize Los Angeles was the main location. If you could, is there another place in the United States you can imagine writing this story in?
Oh yeah, I think it's just one of the main locations. Like in general, the West Coast obviously is like a pretty big draw. I think Vegas would be interesting, like jokingly, the ninth island of Hawaii here. Um, I did consider it, but I just genuinely have not been to like I don't know Las Vegas as well as I know LA from just because I have family there. I visited a lot when I was a kid. Um, it just gives me a better frame of reference to write about a place. LA or Las Vegas, my like perspective of that is real narrow. It's like the California hotel, ironically. So, which if people who are watching this don't know, that's where all the Hawaii people go. I don't know why. Everyone goes there to gamble.
My goodness. So, um, indigenous people just, just generally have a very deep connection to nature. And I think we see that a lot in Kea. There was a moment where she had this like strong desire to go swim in the ocean. And then there's another moment where she recognizes that she is of the land. And I was just wondering if you too have a deep connection to nature and how that connected or reflected in your writing of Kea and in this fantastical setting.
That okay, I saw this question and I was like, I've never really thought about it like that. Not that the connection to nature isn't there, but I just think like that's a really broad, like nature is kind of big. And I see it really as like a connection to specific place. Like even in Hawaii, when I was an educator, there's this concept called Aina-based learning, Aina being land. And it's like about sort of teaching kids to be like building a connection to the community that they're from and like having the education and the curriculum really like centered around that. So it's like they're able to draw better connections from it and feel the importance of what they're learning. So when I see my connection to nature, it's really more like a connection to place and like the stewardship of this specific place that I'm calling my home. And obviously, nature is like an integral part of that, but I think it goes beyond just, volunteering in a lo'i or keeping the beaches clean or just like your general everyday stuff. It moves into the political too, like land rights, water rights, that are very real things happening in Hawaii now, like the fighting against the poisoning of the water system at Red Hill, which is actually a place I used to live in Hawaii, the ongoing bombings of Makua Valley in Waianae, which is where I used to teach. And then like I think like the efforts of our political activism for the rights of land have had like effect and we can like see that. So when I see a connection to nature, I really think it's like more than just being in nature and enjoying it and like literally fighting for the ongoing protection of the land that we're in. Um, that I hope that makes sense.
And I feel like we see that in Kea as well throughout different moments in the story. So I absolutely love that. Um, Another main theme that emerges is that words and languages carry great power. And I know in a lot of cultures, especially Hawaiian culture, names have deep meaning and power. So I was wondering if you could talk about naming your main character, Kealo Kaleo. And it translates to, or at least in the story, Path of the Voice. So can you talk about the process of finding her name and choosing her name and any other thoughts and ideas you have on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna confess to something that my family knows already. I take everyone's names and I put them in stories. One, because it gives everyone like a kick, because we tend to have names that you don't see in books. Like Kealo Kaleo is a mix up of my own Hawaiian middle name, which is Kaleo Olu Ho'ilolio Kawaipahe, like very long. That wasn't gonna fly. That's too long. But I took like a portion of my name that Kaleo is voice, and that's like very important. And I combined it with the name of one of my aunties who I love a lot. Her name is Keala and I sort of like put them together. So I know like when she read it, she was like, that's my name. She's never seen her name in a book. And even like me, like Kaleo, I've never, you don't see that. So I tried to take names from members of my family and put them in. I will say I purposefully never match them with a character that I think is like them, because I don't want to insult anyone. It's mostly just the fun of getting to like see very um, unapologetically Hawaiian names on Hawaiian characters in a book. Yeah, and I like to be able to do that for my friends and family who might not otherwise get that chance.
Beautiful. And earlier I mentioned you are going to be the first traditionally published Native Hawaiian author or fantasy author. Um,
Fantasy, yeah.
so is that for like the big five publishers, or in general? How did you find out about that statistic?
Yeah, it's so it's like very specific. Because I have to be honest, like definitely it's because like it's for marketing and it's because of the sad statistic that I think it's something like only
Mhm.
0.2% of all published authors ever are Pacific Islander, which that's not fun. So it's not like there's a ton of us out there. But yeah, there haven't been any other adult fantasy authors published in the Big Five. There is an adult science fiction author who's Native Hawaiian, Makana Yamamoto. She wrote Hama Jane Luck and the Obake Code, which actually comes out this year. And there have been like lots of Native Hawaiian authors in other genres. Like Megan Kakimoto writes literary fiction with like a horror spin, and like one of my favorite authors, Kiana Davenport, also literary fiction with some like I would say, oh gosh, what is the genre? I don't remember, but she has like fantastic elements in her stories that I really enjoy as well. So I have like a beautiful, what is it called? Like mo'oku auhau in terms of skills, like a genealogy of folks I can look to who've come before me to make like my path easier. But yeah, kind of sucks that that's the first adult fantasy. I just can only hope that it sort of extends and there's going to be more in the future. I know there will be, in fact.
And what a beautiful start to that too, with the killing spell. Sad. It's like it's a double-edged sword. Like it's sad that it's the truth, but how beautiful it is that you're starting with the killing spell with that. And hopefully this I want to see more Native Hawaiian authors published too. So this is just going to be amazing and pave the way for other people.
It's a
Um,
good year.
yeah, I've been seeing like anytime like on Instagram or something, I've been seeing a lot more posts about debut authors and Indigenous authors, Native Hawaiian authors coming out this year. So when this goes out, I'll be sure to also include some other resources and authors also being published this year or in recent years. Okay, so what time is it? So you've written Kaya's story, and by the time this interview goes out, it's out in the world as well. So, as a debut author, what part of Kaya's story resonates with you the most? And then what do you hope resonates with your readers?
Mm, okay. What resonates with me the most? I I think what resonates with me the most about Kaya's story is the fact that it was a lifelong dream of mine to see a story about Hawaii, about Native Hawaiians, that is from the perspective of a Native Hawaiian, and more than that, like one that was had the privilege really of being raised in her culture, which is something that like I'm very lucky to say is the case for me. Like I read a lot of Pacific Islander books, a lot of Hawaiian books, and it's sort of a common thread or theme that a lot of the times the characters struggle with their identity about being Hawaiian or not. And often it's connected to like physical appearance, or being raised outside of your culture. And this is 100% like a valid perspective. It represents the truth and the reality for so many. But it's definitely not the it doesn't represent everybody. I like it most definitely did not represent me personally. And And I think about like identity is such a crucial step, but I do think it's just the first step of like this ongoing process of what it means to be Indigenous, what it is, what it means to be Native Hawaiian. And that like the next one is sort of finding your role in the community and the greater Lahui. Like how can I help to advance Native Hawaiian rights, of course. So I, for myself, I think it's a way to reach out to folks who might not know about the ongoing issues with like Native Hawaiian fights for sovereignty and self-determination in the US, and to empathize and feel that in a setting that, of course, is like fantastical and fun. But I feel like storytelling has this power to like really connect with how people feel and like help to understand things on a level that's more than just like facts and statistics and history. So I'm hoping that that is something that happens, like from my perspective. And then for readers, I really would just want to, I guess, bring it back to this idea of language. Like, culture is language and language is culture. So I think if only even a few people are just inspired to take up the torch and to learn a language, I'll just be so excited. That would be the big goal.
I think that's how I felt after reading this. I was like, let me get back to it. I was like, let me get back to my Uchinaguchi and my Japanese lessons. And it really did kickstart that motivation within me after I finished reading this. And I loved what you said about how your experience as a native Hawaiian, it wasn't a question of your identity, and you wanted to make sure that wasn't the case for Kea. And there were so many moments where I was like, yes, she's so sure of this. She's so confident in herself. She knows who she is. Um, and I just love that so much. And you did such a great job with writing Kea, making sure that was represented. Um,
Thank you. Not to say that kid doesn't have problems, but it's a skills issue, not a not an identity issue, I think.
Absolutely. And that's how I felt reading. That's the exact messaging that I got to um, reading Kea. So, is there anything else you would like to share about the killing spell? Oh, wait, I have another question. I think I
Yeah.
saw in an email or on a blog that you sent your second book to your editor. Um, is there anything you can share about that already?
I I don't know that they're going to accept it. So
Okay.
like I mean I can talk about it. I don't think that they'll have a problem with it. I wasn't told to be quiet. Also, I've already posted about it on social media. But The Killing Spell sold for a two book deal. So this is the first book. So I know there will be a second book. I have submitted for consideration a modern Gothic, which I am incredibly excited about. I think it's going to be so much fun. It's a little bit of a dark romance. I will give you you know what? I'm just going to say, I'll give you the pitch line real quick. It's like a fake Hawaiian kahuna, who speaks with the dead is invited to the estate of a wealthy hotel heiress to cure it of a family curse. And she finds out that maybe the curse is real and she is ill-equipped to fight it since she's uh, a sham, a con. But I'm pretty stoked. So I'm hoping that they like it. And if not, then I don't know what book two will be. Give me a little bit of time. We'll figure it out.
Thank you. That sounds really interesting. So hopefully they pick it up because I just want to keep continuing to read your work. But yeah, so is there anything else with the killing spell that you want to share out with the world? Yeah, any last messages?
Well, no, I guess just like, like Eola ka olelo Hawaii, Eola na olelo honua, like long live the Hawaiian language and the languages of the world. We want them to keep living. It's never too late. It's only too late when we don't try anymore. So
Never too late. On that note, thank you so much for your time and your words and for a copy of the book and for allowing me to read it early. I just knew right away that I wanted to chat with you about this once I heard. I think you came across my TikTok timeline and I was like, I need to look into this. I need to read this very soon. So just thank you so much for your time. And I'm so excited for you and congratulations on your debut.
thanks so much. Thank you for having me. This was really fun.